Hello, my name is David Driscoll. In this, I hope, brief video, I want to talk about change. More specifically, I want to talk about change management, and even more specifically, I have three messages for senior executives of organizations going through the change process. And I've gone through the change process as a consultant for over 40 years with many, many organizations. And so my 3 points, three messages to senior executives is anchored to those experiences. Number one, give people time to process the change and recognize that the change message will be distorted by the time it gets to the front line. Number two, understand that listening is part of communication, and I will suggest the better part of communication. Number three, be cautious about change. Don't rush into it. Don't be overly influenced by the consultants. Be cautious about change. Number one, give people time to process the change and recognize the message distortion. What this fact or what this idea responds to is the fact that everyone will respond to the change process. In the first instance, they will react emotionally. This is a hardwired, evolutionary-based behavior. We react emotionally to the new, the novel, the different, the unexpected. I'm putting up a graphic now that illustrates this because I want you to remember that with regard to change, you had time to come to grips with the change process. As a senior manager, you've gone through presentations, you've been in meetings, you've developed the change message and all the things that have to change in the organization, and then you launch it and expect, very often, wrongly, the front line to immediately accept and adopt the change. At the same time this is happening, know that the change message will, as I said earlier, be distorted. Every time, I'm sure those of you viewing this video have played the telephone game where person one tells a story to person two, to person three, to person four, and by the time it gets to person 10, the message is almost unrecognizable. Well, that's what happens in organizations as we present the change model. I'm going to give you a strategy in terms of an action at the end of this video that can minimize that distortion. So again, give people time to process the change. Remember that there will be message distortion. Number two, listening is part of communication. Recently, I had a manager who was going through, a senior manager who was implementing a major change process and he clearly recognized that communication was important. And in fact, he said to me, my employees are sick of hearing me communicate. That's an exact quote. I communicate so much that they're sick of it. My response, which he didn't like, was that yes, they're actually sick of hearing you talk at them. Now remember, especially during the change process, it's not just about presenting the change, it's also about soliciting the opinion and reaction of those you are presenting to and responding to their concerns, their questions, their observations with an empathic reflection. That is, demonstrate your understanding so that at least, even if the employees don't necessarily agree with the change process, they can't walk out of a meeting with you, for example, without having felt that they've been listened to. At a minimum, you want your employees to feel like you're listening. Be cautious about change. That's point number three as a message to senior executives. I had a quote recently from somebody inside an organization, and he said that the consultants are the only ones that consistently win from organizational change. They get paid whether the change is successful or not. And what that illustrated to me is how much caution a senior executive should demonstrate in entering that strategic change process, whether it's transformation, whatever label they put on it, re-engineering. Be respectful of your history. Your history is what brought you here. Be proud of your stability. Be wary of the current vogue of moving toward increased nimbleness in the organization. Quite frankly, I'm not sure I want my bank to be nimble. I value in a bank, for example, or in a pharmaceutical company or in a public service company, I value stability and predictability. That's not to say that those organizations shouldn't change. Change is a way that we adapt to economic, social, political, and economic changing conditions. So change can be absolutely vital to our survival, but don't go into it lightly. Now here's three actions, three things you can think about. One, ensure that your change presentations include listening, making a space for dialogue. Number two, and this is very much related, this means you may need to train people to more effectively interact. I've encountered this throughout my entire career, that we don't treat the skill of listening as a skill. We expect people to naturally be able to listen, to naturally be able to present. Listening is a skill. Once again, you can train people to listen if they adopt the behaviors associated with effective listening, and then they practice those skills. As they practice, they'll become more proficient. I have a whole video on listening you may want to view. Number 3, develop specific strategies to manage and minimize message distortion. For example, skip level meetings, where a more senior executive meets with folks 2 or 3 levels down. Another very obvious approach to minimizing distortion is to deliver the message via multiple channels. Use YouTube videos, use print material, use interactive presentations. Use as many ways as you can to deliver your message. So once again, give people time to process change. Understand that listening is the better part of communication. Be cautious about change. Be cautious about change. And with that, I would suggest that you take a look at some of the other videos in this series, as they are very related to, particularly the listening skill, to the content of this video. Thanks very much.